If everyone could please take their seats. I call to order the meeting of the CUSD 201 Board of Education today, Tuesday, July 16, 2013. And roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Mr. Armstrong?
Here.
Ms. Caparelli?
Here.
Mrs. Charlton?
Here.
Mrs. Hancock?
Here.
Mr. Johnson? Mrs. Notbush?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 11, 2013 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
Marie, just a quick point. On that June 11th, under the consent agenda, it says that I talk about the asphalt bid, and it says number 5, and the asphalt bid was really number 6. It's just a point.
Okay. Okay, is that, okay, so then, as amended?
So moved.
Okay, well, Gary, you're,
So moved.
okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I abstain.
And I abstain.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the first closed session of the June 11th, 2013 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I am abstaining.
And I am abstaining.
Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the second closed session of the June 11th, 2013 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
I abstain.
Okay, so those motions all carry. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 9th, 2013 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the July 9th, 2013 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, public comments. Heather Booth, please.
Hi, my name is Heather Booth. I live at 333 South Warwick here in Westmont. 5 weeks from tomorrow, my daughter will be a kindergartner in District 201. I'm here tonight to speak about the Westmont Language Academy opportunity. I want to love this program. I attended the April 16th meeting here, the Board of Education meeting, and was impressed with the 2 years of planning that had gone into the construction of the program. However, since the parent meeting at Miller that I attended on May 23rd, I've heard and seen really nothing to retain this excitement and confidence. As far as I can tell from reading the board minutes and with my communications with Superintendent Carey, who's been very forthcoming in answering my questions, no teacher has been hired. The dual language plan that the board was presented with and approved in April included a $1,700 5-day professional development institute at the Illinois Research Center that each new teacher would go through to prepare him or her for the new school year. The Dual Language Summer Institute was held in June 24th through 28th, and their follow-up, their later program, Teaching for Biliteracy Summer Institute, began yesterday. As I chat with parents in my child's summer programs, I tell them about the Westmont Language Academy. But there's no website I can direct them toward, no information on the district site or Miller's site, and a Google search only shows up an article in the Neighbors of Westmont newsletter, composed almost entirely of text cut and pasted from Ms. Boss's PowerPoint presentation to the board. I want to be a champion of what could be a tremendously worthwhile program. My family's about to commit to a 6-year-long program, 8 years if you consider that I have a younger daughter that we would hope would be able to follow in her sister's footsteps. This is a big deal to us. It's a big deal to the district. It's a big deal to the 5-year-olds who are about to be entrusted to the district for the first time. I'm respectfully requesting that the board begin communicating information and developments about the dual language program directly to the parents who have expressed interest, as well as using local news media outlets, district websites, and other social media methods. This is for my own peace of mind, as my family makes the first major decision of our child's educational career, as well as for other families who are new to the district or have yet to hear about the opportunity. I noticed that among the personnel recommendations on the agenda tonight, there's no kindergarten teacher for Miller. The first registration date is a week from tomorrow. How would you feel about making this decision for your own child? As we are making a 6-year-long commitment to the district and to remaining residents of Westmont, I would hope that the board would see the need for more transparency and community building as a priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dan Charleston?
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Dan Charleston. I live in Westmont on Chicago Avenue. Just a word of note and sort of congratulations, but really good news. Having looked at the financial reports prior to the meeting, obviously, mostly good news. The low balance month for May, operating balances, just a hair under $8 million as compared to 4.2 or something 2 years ago. Fantastic news. Obviously, we didn't budget, another $1 million+ surplus this year, but it happened, and that's fantastic news. The disconcerting thing about that is that in light of that, in light of the fact that we knew it, there are 2 less teachers at Miller next year. There are 2 sections, 2nd and 3rd grade, that will have 25 kids. That number was untenable at 5th grade in Manning. So it's disconcerting to see that. It's disconcerting as well. In the minutes you just approved, there was a note about looking at the cost of lodging and transportation for what's referred to as the Tri-I conference for board members. Thinking of 7 board members going to that 3-day conference in downtown Chicago, that's approximately a $4,000 plus or minus sort of number that board members would obviously take up in the budget, and it leads again to this question about priorities. Miller is the place with the greatest achievement gap. It will grow larger this fall once you see the standardized test results. So, it leads to this question about priorities at the board level. And then lastly, just a concern about the midterm capital presentation that's in the board docs presentation this month. Obviously, there's a reference in the facilities report to financing options, and you're looking at those, and you're, that should be a robust look. One of the options, however, is something that I just need to point out is not terribly attractive to me, which is another option at a backdoor referendum, the use of the bond and interest levy that would extend through 2033, which ties up that levy, for 20 years. 20 years. It would cap that levy. Given the tax shift that the district consented to by agreeing to the TIF, the increase in taxes related to that and any backdoor referendum becomes, again, a question of priorities with respect to taxpayers. So just some concerns. Obviously, there's some great news, and look forward to next year. And thank you all for your time. It is Tuesday night in the summer, and you are here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Okay, then we'll move to the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please. I'm sorry. Number 1, personnel recommendations. Number 2, approval of Athletico trainer contract. Number 3, abatement of working cash funds. Number 4, approval of June 2013 expenditure report. Number 5, approval of July 2013 expenditure report. And 6, ratification of June 2013 regular payroll. And then roll call, please, Mrs. McNichol.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Okay, and with that, one of the,
I just wanted to, since we finished the consent agenda, I just wanted to thank Mr. Carey for getting the principal position in one of our buildings filled so quickly, considering we had fairly short notice that that was going to be an opening. And given some of the comments this evening, obviously very important role, particularly this year as we launch this new program. So I just wanted to, since it was kind of wrapped up in the consent agenda along with some other personal recommendations from each building, but I thought that one really just deserved an honorable mention. And I wanted to say thank you, because I know that I was thrilled to hear there were a lot of really qualified candidates, and I was equally thrilled to hear from everyone I've talked to that was involved that there's a lot of passion about the person that was selected, and just really excited to see her come forward and, start to do some things for that building over there. Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
and so one thing I wanted to mention is with this consent agenda, we have hired a number of people, but one of them is Miss Edith Rivera to take over the Miller the Miller principal position. And once we get into the school year, or that first meeting or two, we'll have a reception so that our community can meet our new principal, as well as a couple other administrators that we're in the process of hiring. So look forward to that. Okay. Now, the tentative 2013-2014 budget. Mrs. Anderson?
Okay, good evening. We have the 2013-2014 tentative budget to go over this evening. And first of all, we'll start out with our revenues by source. We have approximately $25.9 million of revenues projected in all funds and about $24.6 million in the operating funds. And as you can see, property taxes are the greatest source of our revenue. For the operating funds, they comprise approximately 83%. And then you can see much lower percentages for state, local, and federal sources. This budget is based on revenue assumptions for property taxes with the levy based on CPI of 3.0 for the 2012 levy and 1.7% for the 2013 levy. Interest rates continue to remain at historic lows, and we also have a decrease in revenue from some of our grants, at least right now. Some of that revenue we may know and have some firm numbers by the time we present the final budget, but right now we're projecting those to be lower than the current year. Our expenditures by object, as you can see, we have the operating funds are about $25 million. And for both in both the all funds and the operating funds, salaries and benefits comprise the greatest portion of our expenditures. So in all funds, about 63%, and in just the operating funds, 73%. And again, purchase services are about 10%. We'll have capital projects again this year, and those expenditures will come from our bond proceeds, the working cash bonds that we issued in July of 2012. And again, tuition makes up between 6% and 7% of our overall budget. The expenditure assumptions were based on salaries at 70% of CPI. We're still negotiating the custodial contract right now. And medical insurance is budgeted at a 1.5% decrease in rates. If you're aware, when we got our medical renewal, our medical insurance rates decreased by 1.5%. And then we're budgeting 10% for the second half of the year. And we also moved our renewal rate to December, so we've got a shorter period. Trend in the industry has been 10%. We've had some really good experience, so our rates are lower, and I'm just not quite sure what to anticipate with the shorter renewal. We have tended to do a 10% increase the last several years. The Operations and Maintenance Fund includes anticipated projects for both this summer and next. And the Capital Projects Fund has renovations that we're currently doing to the early childhood classrooms at South, and then anticipated cost for next summer. And then there's a recap of the revenue and expenditures by fund. And you can see that we have, right now, we have a surplus, or a deficit, of about $502,000 in the education fund. And that's about $101,000 lower than in our 5-year plan. And based again on where we've ended this year. Again, we've got some things we're still working on, private placements and some of our placements for our special ed students. So some of those numbers may change and could change these numbers when we get to the final budget. Our O&M fund, we're looking at about $101,000 deficit. That's a little bit higher than what we had projected in our 5-year plan, and that's because our rental income decreased because of SACID classrooms. IMRF and Social Security are a little bit better than we projected. And transportation fund, we're looking at a surplus in that fund. And so overall, our operating funds, which again are comprised of the education, tort, operations and maintenance, municipal income fund, municipal retirement fund, and Social Security fund, and the transportation fund, is about $451,000, and that's $125,000 lower than we anticipated. So we're $125,000 better off than projected. And again, based on some of the information that we'll get in terms of funding from state and federal grants, and looking at again some of our special ed programs, this may, in fact, look better than it is. And then I've also included the debt service. There's a small deficit this year because with our financing plan for the 2012 bonds, we were paying a little bit of our surplus to cover some of that interest cost. Capital projects, I've budgeted $2.5 million in expenditures, again, based on not knowing exactly what our projects are going to be for the following year. And we have received some of our CDB revenue. This year we're starting to receive that in. I budgeted that very conservatively for next year until we see how that comes. And then fire prevention and safety, again, we're going to look to do some of the projects in there to use up the proceeds from bond funds that we had left. And then fund balance summary. Again, you can see the beginning fund balance for each fund. I've got totals there for the operating funds. And again, you see that the net change for the operating funds is a decrease of $451,000. And then our restricted use funds, about $2.6 million. And again, that we're not really deficit spending there. Those are bond proceeds. That money is already there. There's just no offsetting revenue because that revenue was received this year. Anyway, again, a little bit better than we projected in the 5-year plan.
So Kim, both the capital projects as well as the fire prevention and safety, the money's already.
Right, those are bond proceeds that we're just using up. Key considerations, our revenue projections are conservative. For fiscal year 2013, we received some additional CPPRT revenue that we had no idea of that we were going to get. It was for prior years that finally came to us. Expenditures are based on anticipated needs, the needs that each program is bringing to us. And if if we have medical insurance, comes in better, if our special ed costs are better, Last year, we didn't know what our salaries were going to be, and that's over, 80% of our budget was unknown at the time we put the budget together. That impacts benefits, both in the IMRF and Social Security Fund. Our medical insurance came in much better. So some of those things we really can't control throughout, when we're putting the budget together. And again, we anticipate that buildings and departments are going to spend all of their budgets, and sometimes they don't. And then some of the grant funds too overlap years. So sometimes there's some expenditures for those that aren't done in a current fiscal year. They carry over to the next fiscal year. The 2013-14 budget is aligned with board and district goals to provide educational services to the students and families we serve. We've also incorporated all of the different new programs. We have done the AP courses at the high school, the new schedule at the junior high. We've got dual language. We've got the additions for the early childhood programs in this budget. So we're doing a lot of new things with this budget. Budget timelines, we're obviously presenting the public display budget this evening, and it must be on display for a minimum of 30 days. It will be, people can come and review that at the district office if they would like. We can also post that, obviously it's posted in board docs for people to look at as well. And then we publish a legal notice in the newspaper a minimum of 30 days prior to the public hearing. That publication will occur on July 24th. And then the public hearing and final budget must be adopted by September 30th. And we will have our public budget hearing on Tuesday, September 24th at 7:00 p.m. at the Village Hall at 31 West Quincy Street.
So if we're doing some cost benefits analysis on some of the programs, like through EPER or work, pool or whatever, that could ultimately have a fairly significant impact on what we thought was going to happen as of today versus what could happen.
Correct.
Once some of those things are done.
Right. Right. The other thing, too, that's important to remember is in this budget, we had talked about pension legislation, and we don't know what's happening right now with the state. If the governor gets his way, there will be pension legislation relatively soon. So I also built in a $58,000 contingency for that, which is the approximate cost at a 0.05% or 0.5% of our salaries for that. And so, again, if that pension legislation doesn't pass, and it's not what we anticipated that might be, there's an additional surplus that we might have.
And why 0.5%?
Based on legislation that's been pending.
And that 0.5% would probably be every year, an additional?
It would
It
increase.
would increase,
Right.
so
Right, and we have,
a new chunk of 58 every year for the next 7 to 10 years.
right,
is
and we
what
have that built
legislation's
into our
proposing.
5-year projections.
Okay. With the Capital Development Board money, were we able to use prior projects?
I'm still working on some of that to get that put together.
But we anticipate receiving all that we were allocated?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And just to follow up, I was going to ask about that. What was that total amount that we,
I knew you, I think. was
this
it-
is that, just because you had
Yeah,
referred to that, that's that money that they promised us.
Right, I think it might be around 1.2 million, but I'm not
Okay.
positive.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Amount we've talked about in the
yeah,
past.
okay, that was my question, just because we've talked about making, that in the past. So, okay, thanks, that's what I have.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions?
I just have to say two things. Number one, thank you for being conservative, because it's, I think, the best way to go when you're projecting money that it's not ours, and we're trying to be good stewards with that. And very happy to see that even with these programs that you talked about that our community's been asking for, and the AP and what we're going to hear about the junior high and stuff, it is really great to see that we are still coming in lower on our 5-year plan. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that you guys do to take a look at all the programs and to bring us what is the best way to use the money that we have. So I do very much appreciate that. And I know we are looking at better ways to serve our students, and thank you. I appreciate that.
And then the only other piece of, or only other comment that I have is I did send Kevin an email with a question related to funding for a character education program. This is one thing that our climate committee has been talking about for a number of years. I mean, I've been on this committee 4 years, and it's been something that gets talked about, you know, for that entire length of time. But the issue about funding and, you know, do we have the money for it? Do we not have the money for it? You know, should the committee be responsible for raising some money? And I just feel it's important from the board level for us to say that if the committee comes up with a viable plan and it's something that's reasonable and workable and we feel it's going to be in the best interest of our students, that we are committed to funding that program. So I did ask Kevin, is that something I needed to ask to be included in the budget, or if that would be a dollar amount that could be absorbed in what we already have, you know, spread out on the different line items. But I do think it's important to say that it's something I know I feel strongly about, that we finally give the committee the opportunity to move forward with something like that. And the dollar amounts that we have discussed in the committee from what other people have learned from other districts is somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 8,000 to 10,000, somewhere in there, maybe more, maybe a little bit less. It just depends on the scope of the program. But something on the order of that, I think, would be good to say that the board would like to see something happen in this arena, and that we support. We'll support it with money.
I know I would like to see something. You know, it's too difficult to talk about these programs and just talk about these programs. I mean, you know, we've seen Stand for the Silent, we've seen the Rachel program, and those things, I believe, will cost us money. So we can't continually talk about having those programs in our schools. I think we need to, I do agree, we need to put a solid foot forward and give them a budget to go with, so at least they know what they can do. I agree.
I support the same thing, being a parent that's sat on that committee now for 3 years. It's an important program, and I agree we need to help them get this program going into our school, so.
I think the only thing I would say is my expectation for that would be the same as my expectation for any other program, is that they would come to the board with a presentation and with details and cost and benefit, and just like we'd ask for anybody else. And we that I can recall don't really pre-approve programs normally. So I guess I would want to see what the couple of options are and what the cost is and how they benefit. And I mean, there may even be a program that's slightly more expensive that actually may be significantly more beneficial. And I think that I would rather see those things and not just say, yeah, randomly I agree with something. Like, I want to see, you know, if we've had a committee for 3 years, then there should be some output to the board, and we should have an opportunity to review that and ask questions and, you know, challenge assumptions and do the things that we're supposed to do as a board. So not that I disagree with having a program, I just I would personally prefer it follow the similar path to programs the principals have requested, or, you know, that type of thing.
And I'm sorry if it didn't come across, but I did talk about if they put together a program and bring it to the board. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that would be that the board would have an opportunity to discuss and weigh the benefits and all of that. I just think from the board level, we need to say, yes, we'd like to see this committee come to us with some solid plan. And without them, you know, the committee out there just kind of hanging like, well, should we try to spend time putting something together if the board's absolutely against it, or, you know, that sort of thing.
It's really no different than any other committee that puts a plan together.
Correct.
And presents it to the board. These aren't, you know, these are committees that present to the board, so, yeah.
And I two things. I would like to say that I agree with that too, because I think these programs that the climate committees are working on, I think they only help as I think they work hand in hand with educating our students as well. If you have strong character and a much better and a safer environment that students feel that they can learn in a better environment. So I agree with that. And I guess I'll have to say thank you, Joel, for asking for that, because I know in the past, sometimes, you know, in years ago, sometimes somebody would bring something and there'd be a comment like, well, we don't have the money for that. So I guess, you know, we have to look at all of our money and see what we have. So, you know, and again, I totally agree that this, like any program, needs to be brought to the board as to what the best thing is. But I guess the question is, I like your question, is this something, do we have to put it in the budget, or is this something we want to think about in terms of supporting a program that our district supports? That's, I guess, so that, I'm glad you asked that question. So I guess I'm asking that, does this have to be incorporated in a tentative budget, or can it be added later, or some such thing? I don't know the answer.
I think that, right, it would fit within the confines of the budget. It's really though approving
Okay.
whether that's how we want to spend funds or not. But I think based on things, and, you know, there's still movement between, you know, the budget will change from what's presented. You know, the tentative will change for the final, and so,
Okay.
but I will make sure that I, you know, have that in mind when I'm presenting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, then the chair will entertain a motion to approve the tentative 2013-2014 budget as presented, and that said budget be available for public inspection in the district's business office from July 17th, 2013 until board adoption on Tuesday, September 24th, 2013.
So moved?
Second.
Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes. Okay, then, presentation of monthly financial statements, please.
Forgot I was up, sorry, I forgot I was up next again.
Let me get some exercise.
All right, well, you have the usual reports in front of you, and it's for the month of May, given our early deadline. June is not ready yet, and we didn't present May at the last board meeting because of the timelines. But anyway, during the month of May, the district received approximately $398,000 from the state, which was good news. So the third quarter categorical payments were received, and that was, I think, earlier than the prior year. So that was nice news, and that helped contribute to higher fund balance during that month. And then the state has vouchered $99,254 for payments that have not been released to the district. And again, in the education and tort funds, you know, revenues are comparable to the prior year averages. And the transportation fund, revenues fluctuate a lot from year to year, again, based on those state payments. So our revenues are a little bit higher this month because of receiving that third quarter categorical payment earlier than the prior year. Again, expenditures are comparable to the prior year for the education fund, and in the O&M fund, they're lower than projected. This year, we're 75.9% spent to date. Last year, we were 77.3%. Again, with the mild winter, we didn't have as much custodial overtime. Our utilities continue to come in much better than projected. And we always build in some contingency for, you know, things that break, because we never quite know what's going to happen, and didn't have to use some of those contingencies. So that fund is looking better than projected. And then transportation fund, again, we're a little bit lower than the prior year. Our special ed costs are coming in lower than projected, and again, that has to do with student placement and things like that. So if we have fewer students that need transportation to another facility or things, so that impacts our expenditures as well. And we've had a few of those things occur throughout the year. So, does anybody have any questions?
It's nice to hear we're getting money from the state. It's a good thing. Okay. Then the next thing is, the next item on the agenda is mid-range facility planning. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson.
This evening, I'm going to present to you the work of our facilities report that came from our joint committee. And this is a process that took place beginning in the fall of 2011 when the board received the facility report. And from that report, there were several short-range projects, mid-range projects, and long-range projects. And last summer and the current summer, we were in the process of completing those short-range projects, and we issued non-referendum bonds in order to complete those projects. In the fall of 2012, then, since we had pretty much wrapped up our short-range projects, the fall of 2012, then, the facility committee then began to take a look at the mid-range projects. And the initial meetings, we talked about the criteria or what it was that we want to make sure that we accomplished. And number one is always we want to improve our teaching and learning environments. That's our primary focus as a school district, and so we want to make sure we address those. Safety and security was also very prominent and something that was stressed very much by the committee. As a matter of fact, during this process, we had the school shooting in Connecticut, and the timing of that happened right before we were scheduled to have a facility committee meeting, and even prior to that meeting, because we're talking about the need. How do we communicate the need to the community, how important these improvements are. And I received several emails from committee members saying if there was ever a rationale of why we need to take this next step, now we have it. And so the safety and security really then became the focal point of that group as we move forward, and then the accessibility of our buildings. And in a second, I'll show you basically the improvements. But basically, the projects that would fall into that mid-range projects, and initially we were talking Manning, Miller, and the high school. And for Manning, it's a main office addition, which, if you're familiar with our buildings, right now, in terms of that security element, the junior high is the most secure building. And those of you who are familiar with our junior high, when you get buzzed into the building and you're in the vestibule, the only avenue, the only entrance you have is through the main office. You have to be buzzed through to have access to the rest of the building where the students are and the staff is located. That is the only building that has that in place. Manning, the location of the office compared to where the visitor entrance is, somebody can get buzzed in and they don't necessarily have to go to the office. The same thing is true of Miller and then the high school as well. And then compounding the problem at the high school is the fact that we still are kind of in that quasi-open classroom floor plan, and some changes have been made over the years to the high school to correct that, but at the same time, there's still several classrooms that are not behind a door. And so for Manning, the main office, that addition is to address how students and visitors would enter the building in order to create that same entrance that we have at the junior high, where somebody who is buzzed into the building would have to go through the office. There would also be an elevator that helps with the accessibility, and then some improvements to restrooms. And then in doing that addition, the drop-off and pickup for Manning would be on the Linden side of the building, versus right now it occurs in the alley. And so if you're dropping your student off, you literally have to pull into the alley to drop your student off. At Miller, again, the main office addition, and then the elevator. And the main office addition, again, creates that secure entry to our buildings. Westmont Junior High, and that became, during that conversation of, okay, how do we communicate the need and to our community, and sometimes, depending upon what age your child is and where they're at in our district, sometimes it's more, okay, how does this going to, in the short term, how does this impact my child? And so the last couple of projects that we've done, we've always talked about, well, the junior high has had several improvements over the years, but now we're getting to a point where we do have to address some needs at the junior high. And so that also still has some classrooms that are not in enclosed spaces. And so there's also some classrooms very large, others are smaller. And so this would be an opportunity to balance those classroom sizes and then make changes to the HVAC and the electrical. And then at the high school, continue our work. We did the window project, anticipating that eventually we would close spaces and enclose classrooms. And so continue that so that we would enclose the classrooms, create a true office suite. So again, you would have to enter the building and then enter the office. And then as a result of changing the classroom spaces, you'd have to do some work with the fire suppression and the HVAC and electrical. In terms of what that looks in terms of the floor plans, and you have hard copies. This is also included in the board book, so anybody who is watching, if they go to board docs, they'd be able to get these same images. But right now, if we take a look at what would occur for Manning, the blue area that you see towards the bottom of the illustration, and I apologize that it's, I don't know if I can make this, it doesn't. Of course, my cursor is not. Well, the blue section, that is that office suite that would occur, and that again would create that opportunity for a more secured entrance when. And then this shows the green area shows what would occur to create that parent pick up and drop off, and also drop off for buses as well off of Linden. So, and then we'd also provide some visitor parking on that side of the building. Right now, when somebody comes to Manning, it's very difficult for them to figure out where they need to go if they want to have access to the building. And so that would create a true entrance for the building. And then when we get to Miller again, the blue area that you see there, that is what would be that office suite. It would also include an elevator. And some of those other areas that you see highlighted in red as a result of some of the changes that are taking place, you'd also have to renovate some of those spaces as well. But again, the focus would be creating the secure entrances for our building. And then when we get to our high school, the high school again, we would be creating that one entrance where visitors would arrive and students who are arriving after the start of the school day, and they would have to go through the office. The other thing that's probably difficult to see on the slide, but you can see on your illustration, is that we are incorporating doors to the academic wing, so that, again, one of the problems with the building as it is, when you go on a lockdown, in addition to not having some classrooms, they actually have doors that can be locked, and students need to move across the hall to another classroom, but you really can't lock the academic wing from the commons area from the rest of the building. Well, as a part of this renovation, there would be doors put in place so that you could lock off the academic wing and create, again, a more secure environment for the building. And so again, the cost then of those for Manning Elementary, it's approximately $8.4 million. For Miller, it's approximately $4.1 million. For Westmont Junior High, $5.3 million. And for the high school, approximately $6 million. One of the things that also the committee talked about, and this, part of these conversations were prior to the school district entering into an agreement with the village with regards to the TIF district. So at that time, we were looking at approximately $24 million in projects. And the question was, well, how do you fund those projects? And anytime that you fund those types of building projects, there are three avenues that school districts can explore. One is that you just pay them out of your normal operating funds, your capital development. And the positive to that is that you don't have to necessarily worry about issuing bonds. You don't have to worry about the tax rate and those types of things. The downside is literally it will take you decades to complete the projects because, as Kim pointed out, even though we've been doing better financially as a district and we've had a couple of good years, we're still very cautious. Our budget still projects to be a deficit. We're hoping that by the end of the year, though, that we close that gap as we've been able to the last couple of years. But still, to find that kind of money to pay for these projects, it would take decades. The other option is non-referendum bonds, which is what we did with the first project. And one of the interesting things now is, before we were thinking about in terms of $24 million, how could you do that in terms of non-referendum bonds? And there are creative ways to do that, but it does really tie up, if you have that rainy day, your ability to borrow money is greatly hampered. And so it's very difficult to do. And this is Liz Hennessy, who we work with for our bonding. This is a conversation Kim and I need to have with her now in light of what potentially we can get through the TIF district. There are bonds that you can issue that are based upon having a dedicated revenue stream. So, and the question is, can you consider funds from the TIF district as a dedicated revenue stream? And so that's the conversation we need to sit down with Liz and have, because that is projected upon, obviously, growth in the TIF district, new businesses, and from that revenue, the village then is able to follow through on their commitment to the district. Manning is in the TIF district, so the projects that we're proposing would fall into the TIF area, but then it's that dedicated revenue stream. So one question that we're going to be asking of Liz is, number one, is that considered a dedicated revenue stream? What happens if you issue the bonds and then the funding doesn't take place? What occurs in that scenario? And then is it possible to issue one type of non-revenue bond for Manning and then a different type of non-revenue bond for the other projects? And again, what does that do to our debt extension? And are we, again, running the risk of maxing out our limit and then not having, again, if you have some situation that you didn't anticipate, would you have that funding? The other possibility then, the third possibility, is where you actually have a referendum for the projects and you determine, the amount that you want to go to referendum for. And part of that, again, that depends on the timeline you want to work through. But, and then obviously there's the downside of that is that there is an increase in the tax rate to reimburse that. At the same time, though, you are going to your community and you're asking basically the permission to do that, to issue the bonds. And so those are the two avenues, or three avenues, that we can use to explore the funding the projects. And then the next steps that the committee talked about was the board presentation, which is this evening. And then there's, again, investigating the feasibility of a referendum or the non-referendum bonds. And part of that is having conversations with Liz Hennessy, what that looks like, and possibly inviting Liz to one of our August board meetings to come and talk to the board if the board thinks that these projects are worth pursuing, and then the question becomes, okay, how to best fund those projects, Kim and I would have those conversations with Liz and invite Liz to one of our board meetings to go through those options again with you, give you more hard numbers, answer some of those questions that are lingering. The other interesting thing that came out of that group as well is the Westmont High School pool. And it's kind of interesting because conversations I've had with the board as well. But the question came up, what to do with the pool, because as you know, Mike Maros, who's our Director of Building and Grounds, does a great job maintaining our facilities. And, the usable life of our pool, it's approaching the end of its usable life. And so one of two things has to happen. Either the district has to be willing to make significant investment into the pool, or, I guess one of three things. The district makes the investment and continues in the pool business. We possibly look at partnering with another group or another organization who possibly gets greater use out of the pool than the high school does, and they're willing to make that financial investment. Or we get out of the pool business and we use that space as an alternative gym or some other purpose. And so the committee thought it would be worthwhile to go through a study and see what is the best option for the school district and pursue those different avenues, see if there are entities out there that would like to partner with the school district with the pool, see what the true cost of that would be, and if we did make that investment, then what's going to be the commitment on the school district's part then to make sure that we get full use of that facility, because right now we really, as a school system, we really don't. Outside entities use it more than the actual school district does. Or if truly the best thing for us to do is possibly to change that space into something that, as a district, we would get more use from and would benefit our students. So that kind of in a nutshell is our.
So what do you need from us tonight?
Well, I guess from you, number one, and nothing I showed you today is new in terms of the projects. I mean, those have been discussed. Many of you have been part of our facility planning. So if the board agrees that, yes, we want to really seriously take a look at those next projects and pursue those, then if you're agreeable to it, then Kim and I will begin that process of working with Liz Hennessy on those different funding options and really flesh them out so that they have greater detail. And then at one of our August board meetings, invite Liz, and then we do a presentation on the funding of the projects and then get some direction from the board. How would you like for us to proceed?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yes, all those things.
Okay, I just wanted to make a couple comments, and then maybe we can, if anyone else wants to make comments. I'd like to thank the Facilities Committee who's worked on this again, and I know I was able to make some of those meetings, and so it is, I will reiterate again what you said about, the question was safety, 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 and the three buildings that have not the safest entrance, and then the untenable situation in Connecticut. So I know people talk about this all the time, like the safety of our buildings. And so for me, as a board member, I think two of the best things that we can give our students is the best education we can, and then to make sure that the parents know that there's the safest environment. And I know there's so many things going on in our district for those. So I am happy to see these plans put forth to us, because there was so much excitement about what we did last summer and what we're continuing to do. And every single thing that we've done so far is, in my view, in that direction of education at the forefront. And I know, having children who have been through the school, that the talk of the walls at both schools, the junior high and high school, has been something that has always been like a pipe dream out there. So it would be I would find it very, very, very interesting to put it out to our community as we would whether we did whatever option. So I would love to hear Liz, because Liz, come and talk to us about what our options are and really have these conversations, because every single thing that's presented here are things that have been talked about in this district for so long. And again, with that focus on not just, big, bright, new, shiny things, but it's things that actually impact the learning of our students. So I'm very happy to see all this. And I would just have to say, I agree. I would love to see a presentation.
I would certainly enjoy to see the presentation, and we'd have to take the next step with the buildings. Safety, educating, everything Marie just said is the most important things we can do. The safety issue of our buildings, particularly the elementary buildings, has been talked about forever now, for a long time. So I'd certainly like to see the financial options for that. And I know that with the TIF agreement in place, I don't know if it makes it harder or easier on us, but at least there's another source there, and hopefully that TIF district will take off to some degree. So I certainly would like to hear those options.
Should make it easier.
Should.
That's
We
what
keep our
that's what we're
fingers
hoping
crossed and
for.
hope for.
I think we're very fortunate to have worked with the village to secure the agreement that we did get through the TIF negotiations, and I think it will enable us to move forward on some of these projects in a more timely, expedient manner. I had a question and now. The soonest it could go on a ballot, a referendum. Any idea? Because that, you usually have to know that pretty far in advance, at least from the
Right.
last go-around. I remember that seemed like it was really,
Yeah, it's like
So-
over a year, isn't it, by the time you meet all your
maybe not quite,
postings?
not
and
quite a year, but
I think it's pretty close.
yeah.
We did, when that came up in our committee meeting, then we did take a look at election cycles, the next, and, I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, there are, and by statute, there's, so many days prior to that election that a board has to pass a resolution.
Right.
So as part of that conversation with Liz, we can also have that information as well.
Very good.
Can I just ask a quick question? When you look at the drawings, the Miller edition, the drawings are a little misleading because Miller's really 3 levels, but it's 3 half levels, right? Where exactly is the addition? Would it be at the ground level, and then you have to go down to the first floor and up to the second floor?
I'll ask Steve Cashman, I believe
It's a
ground
little
level.
misleading. It
the
makes it
intent-
look like the addition's at the first floor, and I think
Right.
that's probably not true. I
Right.
think it's probably at the ground floor, which is
Right.
half a floor
I
up.
believe it's the ground level is
Okay.
the intent, right?
I was just curious. It's kind of bugging me.
And I just want to follow up on some of the discussion, because obviously, since the TIF discussions have been going on throughout Westmont, I think it does warrant just a minute of our time to talk about that, and that, the TIF district, we as a board, as a district, didn't ask to have Manning put in there. It was where the TIF district
Right.
was. So the discussion that I hope everybody understands is that when we as a district talk about these projects, we are talking about our whole district.
Right.
And so there isn't any discussion or anything that all the work will be just done at one building. It's, as you say, across the board. And, I just have a question. And just thinking about I wrote down when you said rainy day, and it's funny because and I know what that means, like, roofs and all
Right,
that.
right.
But it is kind of interesting because some of these projects that are being talked about are things that have been talked about for so long. And again, it would be fantastic to address those issues. So I just wanted to say that. Not that we don't know what a rainy day is,
Right.
but this is something that's been these things are things that have been talked about for so long.
Good.
Anything else? No. Could we get drawings for the junior high?
Mm-hmm.
Just to have,
Yeah, we can get those.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. So, okay, so our are we in agreement? We would like to see
Yes.
he's looking for?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll look to have Liz come and
Right.
further these conversations.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, Mr. Jonak's already there, discussing the Westmont Junior High School schedule.
That's because I'm so excited.
You're so excited. Excellent.
Are we?
So are we.
Really.
Really, what we all been waiting for.
So with me is Miss Amy Quattrone, the assistant principal, and she's here as we look at the new schedule. Some of the information that I'm going to be giving tonight has been put out throughout the last few months, but I've put it all together, and then there's some new information that's going to be shared tonight in a little bit more detail than in the past. Just wanted to mention, as there was the talk about the climate committee and some funding for some possible character building and bullying awareness, that's fantastic. Being on the committee, I'm looking forward to having that new direction. So that's great, and I'll probably be helping with the proposal in front of you that night too. Okay, so with this has been placed together with Ms. Quattrone and then myself, and then faculty. A lot of staff members have been integral in this. So hopefully by the time you're leaving here tonight, you'll have the rationale behind why the change, which you've heard some of that in the past. You'll have some sample schedules for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. The E-period and the Excel, you'll have a better understanding of what each of those is and whether they're the same thing or whether they're different things, and they're different. You'll have a little bit of a glimpse on what interactive technology is and some of the other exploratory and elective classes, and then the highlights as well for the coming year, which that's just a little tidbit I threw in at the very end. Wanted to mention to people that might be at home that this PowerPoint is located on my blog as well. One of the PowerPoint 101 classes you take is not to put too much information on there. I've put tons of information on there, but you can follow at home if you like to. So last year's schedule, why the change? And that's because of these reasons. It's inflexible, driven by programming, lopsided classes, and all of these other things. There were quite a few problems that we had with the former schedule, and it really tied us and limited us, and that's why we looked specifically. Next, as far as the new schedule, these are just some of the things that they're going to be giving opportunities for our students, more opportunities for all students. They're going to be fixing some of those issues that we've had in the past. We're going to continue on with the innovation that's been going on in the district and throughout the school. We're going to be able to implement the comprehensive literacy model, which the district has adopted, to ensure that there's enough time that is necessary in the content to apply in real-world problems for our students. And then it gives that adequate time for interventions or enrichment opportunities for all students. And of course, building relationships. So this is, I'm getting right to it. This is what a sample 6th grade schedule can look like. And it starts with that 0 period. And what we've done here is we've taken some of this. There's no longer advisories for the next school year. We've taken away advisories, and we've used that time, and we've invested that in either interventions or enrichment classes at the very beginning of the day. And that happens right at the start for all students. They're either in interventions, which is a reading or a math club to help with reading or math, or they're going to be in enrichment. And I'll go more into detail. But for at home, you see that there's the sample 6th grade, a sample 7th grade, and a sample 8th grade. I'm not going to read through each one of them for you. You can take a look at them. I know depending on what our parents, where the age group is of their child, they'll be paying attention to one more than another, perhaps.
Do you want questions as you go, or do you
At the end would be great.
Perfect.
Would that work?
Yep.
Okay. That worked out well the first time that I presented. So what we know is, as far as the middle grades are concerned, it's the time that they make those independent choices. Are they engaged? What kind of effort are they going to put forth? And a lot of that engagement ties directly to the choices that they make. So this process and this schedule, I got to be honest, it is a pain. It's difficult. It's going to take a lot of hard work. It's taken a lot of hard work to get to where we're at, and it's going to take a lot of hard work to maintain that. It's not easy on the faculty, it's not easy on the staff, it's not easy on the administration, but we believe it's what's best for students. So as far as choices are concerned, you might have heard previously that the students have the students of the month and students that are caught being good, and even teachers, they go along with a ride. But if they're doing something well, they have the opportunity to choose a song that's being played during the passing periods. So this isn't just about making choices about music anymore. This goes into the enrichment classes, the E-period classes. So is there a difference between E-period and Excel? And the answer is simply yes, there is. So to talk about E-period first, as I said, 35 minutes at the beginning of every day. Every student is in either an enrichment class or an intervention, math club or reading club. So the placement is just dependent on what the child needs, what each student needs. And depending on if there's a deficit in reading or in math, or whether they're at grade level, that is where the placement is determined. And that is taken by a whole bunch of different data points, not just the MAP test or the ISAT. It's teacher. It's also teacher recommendations, whether it's the 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, or whether we're getting that information from the elementary schools, the 5th grade teachers as well. They're part of the process. So the teacher or the students that need the interventions are in math club or reading club, and they are constantly progress monitored. The students that do not have deficits in those areas, they will have an opportunity for enrichment, and those are 3 to 6 week mini units that are created by the teachers. And so there's the 6th grade team, and the sixth grade team teachers, they're either teaching an enrichment class or an intervention class. And then we have some exploratory or PE teachers that are attached to different grade levels depending on the population of that class. And so they'll be teaching classes as well. And you'll see that in just one moment. So these mini units are going to change constantly. And in the beginning, and by the way, this research was done, and it was done on a national level, a state level, a local level. We went and saw West Hills and what they're doing over there in South Westmont. And so we brought this plan together looking at a whole bunch of different research. So at that point, when we start looking at what these enrichment possibilities are, this is for the 6th grade. So what are those enrichment possibilities? Spanish for beginners, NCIS Westmont, the Rube Goldberg project. I learned a little bit about that yesterday by a young man. The superhero student, and that's tied into art and teen life. Now, these are just the first session of opportunities. And this happens to be tied to what teachers are really inspired by and what they're passionate about, and also what they're hearing students are passionate about also. So the idea is that after this 3 to 6 weeks, there's going to be a new 3 to 6 week units that are established and created. Now the idea is that eventually, because we're just starting, we're going to be crawling a little bit before we're running. But as time goes on and as we see what is popular by the students, these different mini sessions can be repeated or they can be all original. So the teachers can be doing this, throughout the school year. The enrichment classes take place, and the E-period altogether, they take place Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay? And now, if if I was a parent of a student that needed some extra help in reading or math, I'd say, well, this enrichment sounds awesome. It's fantastic. It's great. But my kid's not going to be in it because they're getting some extra help in reading and math. Well, yes, of course. They're going to be getting help in reading and math. But the reason why we have it in 3 to 6 week increments is so that a student that is in an intervention, reading or math club, they can actually continue to progress monitor. And as there's proficiency that is built, they have the opportunity to move out of that intervention, that reading or math club, and to go into enrichment classes. So the whole idea is that it's flexible and that we can move kids in and out as needed. And if there's a student that's in enrichment but that's been having a hard time lately, they can dive into the intervention classes, the reading or math classes, and then they can go back out okay? But we're going to make sure that we're putting things in place to make those students successful, okay? So that was 6th grade. 7th grade has an introduction to Spanish as well, bugs, 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 be a lawyer in a mock trial, and golf as well. I'm going to keep going here. You can read on your own as far as the descriptions. As far as the 8th grade is concerned, there is an I in team, and that deals with sports fans. I am the Lizard King. I'm not so sure that that's about the Doors. I'm pretty sure it's not about the Doors. Cover songs, yoga, Pilates, and dreaming around the world. And we have somebody, a teacher that's coming back from a sabbatical that will be teaching that class. Now with this, it's not locked in because I met with the high school because we were talking about the Spanish 1 class that's available that I'll discuss later. And the high school foreign language team came and talked to us about, well, what about other foreign languages, other world languages? And then we started brainstorming, and this is another perfect outlet for not just being about teachers coming in and teaching what they're passionate about, but it's a 3 to 6 week unit. So the opportunity for other people, school board members, for community members that own a business, for parents that have a week off or a few days off, for other teachers across the street, for high school students that are in their 4th year of French. The opportunities are endless. Now, once again, we got to walk a little bit before the pie in the sky, but there are a lot of great opportunities, I believe. So let's talk about Excel. You got a snapshot of what that E period looks like. Excel is also going to be a flexible period during the day. And this goes back to one of my presentations in March. The number one feedback that I was getting back from students was that they were looking for a time in the day that they were able to work on classwork, study, enhance study habits, and have the support of a teacher to get it if they needed it. So Excel is that, but it's much more. And it goes, if you take a look at the next slide, it goes into that in a little detail. Going back to my people, the Climate Committee, it is an opportunity not just once a year to hit what bowling awareness is or what character counts is all about, but this is a time that you can hit 20 minutes throughout an entire week. I'm not saying 20 minutes a day, but 20 minutes in a week. And so that message is getting out there on a weekly basis, not on just 1 week throughout the entire school year. And I think we all know that those are the kind of messages that are going to have sustainability. So that's where we'll be looking at our social emotional needs and our bullying awareness. That could be library checkout, silent sustained reading time, work completion, computer lab time. One of our amazing new hires to join our already amazing staff is a powerhouse when it comes to math and literacy and technology. So she's already come up with some great ideas of different classes and enrichment enhancement classes that she can teach during that period of time. So it's type to learn because once again, we're taking away the computer 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade classes, which not all 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teacher or students received in the past, and we're embedding those technology classes with the help of our media specialist and our literacy teachers into those literacy classes and throughout the curriculum, throughout the disciplines. So it's time for basic math games. I'm not going to read everything here, but you can see that there's a lot of potential, which also ties into that progress monitoring piece. Progress monitoring and goal setting shouldn't just be done for our students that aren't necessarily at grade level or having deficits. It's something that we can all benefit from. So there's quite a bit there as far as possibilities with Excel. Now the Excel will meet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So what are some of the things that the new schedule allows? And that is the 6 per grade level, 6 blocks of literacy, a foreign language at the 8th grade level. And there was a question from a 5th grade parent going into 6th grade, are we going to do that at the 7th grade level and the 6th grade level? At this time, it is just planned for the 8th grade. increase, we had an audit by ISB as far as the ESL program in the overall district. And one of the things that they recommended was upgrading our program. And so we are doing that. And we have another fantastic new hire that's going to be an instructional coach for us as well. So we're upgrading our ESL program. Our special resource teachers are going to be able to teach our reading and math booster classes. So those are our intervention classes as well. Study skills, which I've already mentioned. And this one, the common lunches, personal, and team plan, that looks like it doesn't mean much. But giving the opportunity, now teachers meet daily for team plans, which is essential. But on top of it, in the past, in the schedule in the past, they had met, or they didn't have the opportunity to meet during their personal plan. This schedule allows for them not only to meet during their personal plan and lunch, but by their team plan as well. So all 3 times. So they might get sick of each other, I'm not quite sure, but they do have the opportunity for a social studies and a science teacher to meet together during the day, okay, which is something that wasn't possible in the past. And that's, I'm talking about grade level wise. Supervision, this was an issue when we had some 6th grade and 8th grade male students or female students that were in the locker rooms at the same time, and it's an easier flow, especially with health. There were certain logistics that were in place that made it for difficult situations, and we're trying to make it safer and to feel safer for our students, so that helps with that. I already talked about the media specialist and her new role, talked about the interventions and the reteaching time. The grade level band classes for the most part, and these changes take place for, I'd say, 99% of our students, maybe a little bit less. There are a few students that we're trying to stay true to our past programming as we're evolving into a new program, and so we're trying to stay true to what we promised those students. So for some classes, there might be 1 or 2 students that are 8th or 7th graders that are in an 8th grade band or something along those lines. Then we have an instructional coach as well that will be working with students in co-teaching. And that's part of that professional development, that in-house professional development. So the exploratory or the elective classes that are available for this year, and this is something that went home to all parents. It was on the blog. It was parent linked out. So hopefully everybody got it that needed it. So it's here's our year-round or our semester rotation. Our rotations look a little bit different. Now, instead of it being quarterly or on a trimester, it's on a semester rotation. So 6th grade has art, general music, or industrial arts, and that's a semester. So either they have art, general music, or art and industrial arts. And then the year-round is chorus or band. And there was an option also, the combination. Some people wanted to have and I believe we have around 7 or 8 students per grade level that wanted to have the combined class. And I'll go more into detail about that. 7th grade has the rotation is the art, industrial arts, and the intertech, which was previously known as coding class or hacking. We've tried to make the name a little more PC. Also the chorus and band as well. So 8th grade has art, industrial arts as part of the rotation, and then the year-long classes that are available are the Spanish 1, which the students do have to, and I want to make sure I make this clear, the students that take Spanish 1 have to pass the exit exam, which is the exit exam that is at the high school in order to go on to Spanish 2 the following year at the high school. So that's, I think we all could understand why. And then there's a year-round art class, and then there's chorus and band with the combination chorus band if necessary. Swing choirs in the morning if a student had made that, so that's during that E period time. Songwriting and media studies were things that we had originally in the schedule that when we looked at all of the information and all of the choices that students were making, there were only 1 or 2 individuals that were looking into that, and we couldn't justify having those courses. So what does that instrumental and choral shared music program looks like? Well, let me first tell you that who I believe you already approved tonight is one of our new teachers, Jackie Fisher, and she's amazing. Some of the students who were part of the interview for process, they helped choose Jackie. They didn't help They were unanimous, so they love her to death. I could tell already. But Jackie was approved tonight, and so she's not technically with us until your approval. But there might be some slight changes to this. But it's a shared concept, 50% of the time in band and then 50 in chorus. They're going to be learning the same songs, both in band and chorus. There's a shared grade between the two. The assignments are going to be differentiated. This is going off of what I discussed with Mr. Faust and the conversations he had with Ms. McGovern before she left. And then there's going to be the same exit outcomes. But it is going to be differentiated as well. And it's going to be challenging for those individuals. So let's talk about Intertech. And this is, once again, formerly known. Whenever I hear formerly known or say it, I always think of Prince for some reason. But hacking, coding, it was formerly known as. And you look at it, and there's just an explanation of really the objective, the rationale behind it, and the objective. So that's for you to look at. And we do have quite a few students that are eager to take that class. And that is the 7th grade exploratory. So some of the highlights for next year, besides all the things that I've already shown you, we have a pilot of the Bring Your Own Device, and that is for the 8th graders. The hope is, now I know the high school did the pilot last year, and they're going to be fully embedded. It's going to be fully embedded next year, this coming school year. We're going to start with the 8th grade because we have to make sure that our network is ramped up enough to support that, and also that what they did in the high school is able to work also at the junior high. I've heard some fantastic things about it at some other schools that have done it. We just want to make sure it's a good fit for us, and we figure we'll start with a small amount first. So that'll be 8th grade. And if that works and our network is up and running and we can support it, the idea would be as soon as possible to implement that school-wide. Greener communication and report cards. So you'll be seeing, although I gave you handouts tonight, I apologize for that, but I want to make sure in case we had technological difficulties that you had it. But we're going to be seeing more information being out, less handouts and more blogs. As you can see, skipping down a little bit here, we're going to have a Facebook presence. We're excited about that. We're going to have, we already have a Twitter account, and we're going to ramp that up a little bit for next year as well. Parent link for those that have already heard my voice on their home phone, and so many other things between Skyward Access. So be looking for that. Also, report cards. If parents want a report card, they can request that from us, and we can make them a copy. Otherwise, we figure that what you have in your hands, you know, having Skyward, that gets you the information that you need. PE uniforms. Our PTO has supplied PE uniforms in the past. It's not something that they would like to do in the future. And so we're working with Holy Cow, which is somewhat local in Downers Grove, and they're supplying it for the future. More information will be handed out during registration. We've got flyers. We're going to be putting it online, all that good stuff. And uniforms are going to be available after August 1st for pickup from Holy Cow. Also, something a little bit different that I hinted upon previously. Instead of spending a whole bunch of money on textbooks for social studies at the 7th grade level, we have purchased Chromebooks, a classroom set of Chromebooks. And so that's going to be a pilot at the 7th grade level, and seeing how we're implementing technology using the Chromebooks with the 7th grade social studies curriculum. And then the new faculty. Obviously, we have an amazing faculty already. And then to add to that amazing faculty, we have just wonderful people. I mean, everywhere from nurses to teachers to coaches. We're just very excited about what the future is holding. So at this time, I would like to invite Miss Amy Quattrone, because I deal with some of the big picture stuff. We both deal with the big picture stuff. But then when it gets down to the details and actually making the schedule work, she is the wow factor. So she's here to help me answer questions. So now would be a perfect time, Mary Kay.
Mary Kay, do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I just had two quick, you answered, good call on the wait until the end, because you answered most of my questions.
It's an old teacher trick.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as the E-period enrichment, enhancement.
Yes, enrichment, you got it.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday?
Correct.
What happens on Wednesday?
Wednesday, we all take the day off. No,
good.
Wednesday is a shortened schedule.
Oh, right, PLC
And so
days.
because of that, we're trying to.
Bad, John.
Oh, that's okay. It's fine. It is a good
Glad I didn't
question.
ask that.
Because you know what, people are wondering at home too. So that's a good question.
Okay, and then I was just a little bit confused on the Excel section because there is so many opportunities in
Right.
that Excel section. So how is it determined, if they have one 40-minute slot in the day, how is it determined what they will do for that time?
So those are, the idea is to give many different options to teachers. There are going to be certain things that are, this is definitely going to be happening. Like the social emotional learning standards, we're going to be hitting those at some point. But as far as like some teachers are going to be signing up 1 week, going to the media center, but that might not be available the next week. And so we wanted to make sure, it's always good to overplan. And we want to make sure that there are many different opportunities for our students, and that depending on the need of the student also, because it could be differentiated, depending on the need of the student, there could be another book that is being read during that period of time. There can be enhancement for math and working specifically with the media specialist. Our media specialist, I'm just saying, our media specialist teaches math courses to teachers that teach 6th through 12th grade mathematics courses. She's teaching something at Dominican right now. And so she's a perfect person, whether it's teaching a 6th grader 6th grade math, 7th grade math, 8th grade math, or onward.
Okay.
So that's part of that differentiating. That's why there's so many options up there for Excel.
And some of our non-negotiables include the character education, the study skills. We recognize that our students need training in the executive skills department, like time management, how to study at home for a math test as opposed to a reading test. So those are the non-negotiables that we'd like to include in that class.
Right.
And for some students, that will be differentiated. So if the teacher recognizes that is not needed for that individual student, they'll have an option to be working on something else. Now, and in that same way, and I'm sorry, Shannon, that same way, if the student's needing extra help, or if they're just trying to work on a project and they're just not getting it, then they have the opportunity to talk to the teacher. And so they're not waiting until they get home to not get it. And my dad was an engineer, but he couldn't teach me math for some reason. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing on my part, but it's so that opportunity is there for the student. Shannon.
So same question, I think, though, but I don't think I'm clear still. So where is the student physically during that period? How do they know what teacher they're assigned to, and how do they know what out of that laundry list of things, some of which are not negotiable? I'm still not exactly clear. Is that the replacement for advisory? Is this effectively they go to their advisory teacher for this period?
It's an advisory, but so much more, and it's throughout the day. There's different teachers that are teaching it throughout the day.
It all depends on the student's schedule. So we have an Excel offered every period at every grade level. So
Thank you.
it all depends on
All
the
just
schedule.
fell into place
That's
for me
why,
right there.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I have a question. And so they can change what they want to do every day? So they don't have to pick one area for
Well, there
a
will be,
week
the
or 2 weeks?
teacher will create something that everybody, if it's executive, if they're working on time management. So the teacher might give a 10-minute mini lesson that everyone will be exposed to. But at that time, after that mini lesson, if the child needs to work on a project or needs math homework, that's when the differentiation will happen.
Okay.
So something for everybody, it'll be a whole class learning experience for a section of time during that Excel period.
I think that was my disconnect, because I thought that the kids were making the decision as to
Yeah.
what they wanted to do for that 40 minutes.
The teacher will really look at the needs of the students based on assessments, how they're doing in class, and things
Okay.
like that, and then they'll make
Okay.
the decision.
Will they move from one location to another during that time in Excel?
Most likely, no.
Okay, so they'll remain
They're
with,
attached to that teacher. We're really looking for the teacher to build relationships with the students, to be that one person that the student can count on, can come to if they have any kind of questions in any area of school, so.
And I was just going to follow up on that because I know you and I had a quick email. So they're assigned to an Excel teacher, and then that Excel teacher works with those students, and then sends them off where they need to go, right?
If they need to go
If,
anywhere.
if they need to go.
But most likely, they'll be staying in that classroom with that teacher.
And will it be presented to the students? You just said something that wasn't in any of the written material about Excel, which is building a relationship, that's their go-to person. That's not anywhere in any of the writing I've seen so far. I mean, that's good for us to know, but it seems to me it would be good to actually say to students when they start the school year that
And
this is
that's-
the function of this role and this teacher, and this is.
And when, way back, do you remember when we were teachers? Way back when we were teachers, and we had advisory, or they were called prime times, that's one of the, besides if it's a sixth grade student, a new sixth grade student coming in, besides getting the lay of the land, that's part of the process of, hey, that's part of explaining it to the students, I'm your go-to person. Like, that whatever you need, I'm here for that. It's part of building that relationship.
I would add that bullet point to your write-up. If you're going to use this write-up for anything, like if it's going to get published or it's up somewhere, I mean, I think there's value in saying this is sort of the replacement for advisory, and this is also an important function that this person plays for each individual student, because individual parents looking at this, you know, it's a good thing to know that there is a go-to person and that they can direct their child. You know, you have this Excel period, this is the person you should be asking to start with.
Okay.
My question, E-period also, I know you, seems to be very popular.
That's all right.
How many students are going to be in each one of these E-periods? So a student needs intervention. Is there going to be a classroom of 15 students that need intervention? Is it going to be 3 to 5? I mean, advisory was a very small group generally, right? Is that?
About 15 to each advisory. Our interventions, it will depend what intervention it is and how deep the intervention goes. So it could be as small as 2 students. It could be as large as 5 to 7. So it
Okay.
all depends on the intervention that's given.
What about the other side? Say Spanish for beginners here. I mean, what if?
We're trying to keep it around 15, but it all depends on the class size and how many teachers we have attached to that grade level. So about 15, maximum 20.
And there was never a grade given for advisory, right? So is there going to be a grade given for any of this? How will a parent know how well the student's doing? Just, I mean, will there still be reports to the parents about
For the
the
E
activities?
period,
Yes.
for the intervention, definitely, absolutely, because you'll want to be following the progress
Right.
monitoring piece of it. For the E period, that's something that we are going to discuss with our team leaders when we meet in August. And so we'll figure out how we can do that reporting and share it out with parents.
I just wanted to, you know, I know it says questions up there, but I just would like to say, first of all, thank you both for coming here. Probably the most questions I've received as a board member is about the junior high. So, you know, seeing some of this certainly answers a lot of the questions. And so I just have to say thank you for coming. And this is fantastic. So I will now ask a couple of questions that I had. So this is, again, some of these things, it's so good to hear you talk about these things now, because now some of the stuff that was talked about before kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. So can I ask if there will be, at the beginning of the school year, something like this for the parents who might not be watching tonight or some such thing? So will there be something at the beginning of the year?
Well, it is, it's on the blog,
Okay.
So my blog right now, but I'll need to change it because I'm going to take what Shannon suggested and edit that. But besides, that's on there right now, and I sent an email out to anybody who gets my blog. And then we're working on Parent Link right now, so I'm trying to make sure that I can access those incoming sixth grade parents in grades. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So there's a few multiple ways that we're going to get that out.
Also, the ice cream social, we'll be giving out that information
Okay.
to parents at the ice cream social. So all of the fifth grade parents coming into sixth grade and any new students coming into seventh and eighth grade as well.
Okay, and just a couple more. So looking at these schedules, the sample schedule, thank you for that. So they start the 0 period at 8:20. What time do the students get to the school? I know, I'm going to ask some tough questions because these were the ones that I keep hearing.
Sure. So the buses drop off somewhere between 7:40 and 7:45. The doors open or 7:40 and 7:50. The doors open at 7:45 to the school, and we have supervision, and the students stay inside all students that are coming in at that time stay in the commons. And then we have at 8 o'clock, we break, and some of the students go into the gymnasium. Certain students might be able to go see teachers at that time. There's breakfast that's available at that time, but then the class actually starts at, the first class actually starts at 8:20.
Okay, so that's not going to change, the start of the school day?
Correct.
Okay, had that like 10 times asked. So, so that's going to still remain, or some students go to the commons and some go to the gym?
There is something that is still being discussed that Mr. Carey is talking about, and there might be one class that may start a little bit earlier, but I'm not sure what the status is of that.
And, you know, and I get that, like, there's a lot of dominoes in effect, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask the questions that I keep getting.
Marie, can I ask a question related to that one?
Yeah.
So I've heard, and this is a harder question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot.
You could have waited
but
till yesterday.
Yeah, well, I didn't think of it till Marie asked the question, but I have heard a lot of talk about kids getting dropped off in front of that building, standing outside in the all weather that happens until the doors open, lack of supervision. I mean, this is nothing new. This has been talked about all year, and I don't have a student in that building yet, so I haven't personally experienced it, but I'm curious. I mean, so much work has been done, obviously, on the schedule and improvements. I haven't really heard that talked about too much, and I don't know, that might be really a Kevin question, but there has been concerns raised off and on throughout the course of the entire year, at least as long as I've been on the board, if not longer. And I'm just wondering, has that been discussed? Is that something that still needs to be talked about a little bit more? Because I think we have students standing outside in all kinds of weather. We have students standing outside without supervision after the bus leaves. We have some, you know, even if it's only 5 minutes, you know, that age group kids can get in a lot of trouble in 5 minutes. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need an answer now. I just want to mention it because kind of Marie made me think with her question that I think we do need to just know, acknowledge if that has, I mean, it's been brought up. I've heard it brought up to, you know, the building and to Kevin as well. So I think we just need to know, is that being acknowledged, and have we addressed that, or are we saying that that's not really a problem because the buses are going to get there at the same time the building opens? So again, I don't need an answer right this second. I just want to mention it as a possible concern.
Something that we'll work out with the bus company then to ensure that, you know, kids, if the bus is early for some reason, that they're not dismissed off the bus until it's, you know, time to the school opens. So
You know, the only other thing I will say is, I know Manning had a hard and fast rule, 8 o'clock. Don't bring your kids before 8 o'clock. So kids on the bus, obviously, if it's the bus dropping them off at 20 till and the doors don't open until 1/4 till, then we have no control over that. The kids have no control over that. Open the doors at 20 till. But the flip side is, you can't open the doors if kids are being dropped off at 7:30 or 7:15 or.
I think this was more a bus issue, not a parent drop-off issue.
Well, I mean,
that was.
I think it's something we have to.
It's been brought up.
We have to, you know, because, you know, you want to accommodate certainly all of the kids, all of the buses, and do what you can in that regard, but there's that flip side too.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I know we've all heard that, and through the years, those are things that come up. So, again, we're so glad to have you here so that we can have these, you know, conversations. Just again, as long as we're talking about that safety issue, you know, and if we can make sure that those buses don't say, get off the bus, because I got to go someplace else, so that they're not standing out there in the mornings. Okay, then, could you just briefly, I know you said you were talking about the available in Excel. For those that don't know it, could you just briefly talk about the Khan Academy and the flipped classroom, just because that's so exciting?
Absolutely. And this was something that the media specialist that is coming got very excited about. She's like, you guys can watch YouTube videos at your school? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh my gosh, all the things that we can do. So the flipped classroom, and really there's so many different ways to look at this, but the flipped classroom is basically having the assignment saying, okay, go home, watch this 7-minute lecture that either the teacher, that specific teacher, that social studies teacher or math teacher has produced and put on the internet, whether it's on a social site, a social academic site like Edmodo or Schoology, or whether it's going onto YouTube because they found somebody explained it really well, another professor, teacher, student, whatever. So directing the students to go to a site, see the lecture portion of it, and then come to school already with that knowledge that, so the direct instruction piece is already done at home, and then coming to school and actually doing that group project or doing that individual project or actually working out the math problems with the teacher there so that the teacher can catch, this is where you're making your mistake, you know. So that's one piece of it. That's one way to look at it, but it's so much deeper than that as well.
We've talked about it at the board table, but I just thought as long as you're here and you're talking about it, because that is such a wonderful, and you know, we've heard about it from a number of different sources, and on behalf of parents everywhere who can't do the math when they come home with it, it's a great concept, and I know we've talked about it, but I thought as long as you're here,
sure.
If you
Now there's obviously with that there's certain things that could cause some hiccups. You know, not everyone has internet access at home, and so there are certain plans in place. Like right away, the media specialist is like, well, what could, you know, can we keep them after school for a period of time? Can they use the resources that we have available here? Can they come to school prior and catch that clip, you know, 20 minutes before the bell rings? Or so we are working on plans for those students that don't have that access at home,
okay, well,
or don't have access to the library.
I know Joel just talked about it like a meeting or two ago, and it's such a great concept that it would be so exciting to really, you know, as we're making steps, to look into that. Okay, you talked here about, thank you very much for the supervision in the locker room. I know that's something that has come up. So you talk about the grade level band classes being smaller. Will that go for the choir too? Or is it just, I know there was always that question that the band room is small. And so, you know, that's come up in many things, but
Yeah,
is
when
it,
you see approximately 70 to 80 students in there, and we're not talking about little elementary kids anymore, so yes, it can be a challenge, and so that will definitely help. When I had talked to Ms. McGovern prior to her leaving, we had discussed those different options, and she said that would be ideal to break it down that way.
so will that be for choir as well? Then? Okay,
Yes.
okay. Okay, so swing choir is in the morning, so during E period. Is that every morning then? The students who are in swing choir, that's where they go, okay?
Only
Now with-
7th and 8th grade students.
And that's 7th and
Right.
8th grade
So it's
students.
7th and 8th grade, right.
And I have to double check what's going on as far as Wednesdays are concerned with swing choir.
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna do it. So in terms of your, you know, I'm so excited, I just have to say this, I'm so excited about this. And it's just so many people in the district have been waiting for these kind of things. When you talk about the highlights, you know, some of these are just fantastic. Facebook presence, Twitter, I mean, the kids are there and parents are there. Will there be any changes to the parent-teacher conferences?
The well, first of all, we've had an open house. We call it an open house in the past, and really the format of it is a curriculum night because the parents are seeing what it is. And I've had in my first year, and all of my experience at Westmont Junior High School, I've had students approach me saying, "Oh, I came late, but I thought it was an open house. We come and go as we want." So we're trying to call it what it is, and it's a curriculum night. As far as there has been no talk about changing up how the conferences are currently, except advisories. That's good.
Well,
Remind me, because you know I'm getting old.
There has been a little talk because parents were meeting with their Excel the advisory teacher that maybe never had taught the child. So that has been an issue for our teachers and for our parents as well. So we were discussing how we could change that. And again, that's something that we need to talk to our team leaders about to see how we can change that.
Okay.
So yes, there has been
and you know,
discussion,
again,
we recognize.
I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, it's
Right.
just these are some of the hot button issues that have been happening. And I know for a fact that many parents are like, well, I'm not even gonna go because we in our district have Skyward, and you can see and maybe touch base with an individual teacher throughout the school year, then they go to the parent-teacher conference and they're sitting there with a teacher that might not have that student. So that's one of the, the concerns about the parent-teacher conference.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
again, as you're doing all these steps, it is a concern. So, I'm done with my questions.
That's it?
And I just want to say thank you for bringing a lot of creativity to the scheduling. I think it's really, really going to be exciting for the students to have a lot of choices that are here. I love the mini lesson concept. I think that gives you a lot of little pilot study information that you can expand upon down the road. I think it offers our staff opportunities to shine in areas that are personal to them or passion for them, and I think it's just really a great break and very innovative, and I'm very, very excited to see it taking place. And
Thanks, so are we. We're very excited too.
I often reference with Kevin that video clip where the students are on the conveyor belt and they just kind of, go through the school system, and this really kind of starts, we're pushing them off the conveyor belt now and telling them to walk somewhere and see something new and experience something different, and I think that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have a sense of what percentage of your student body is going to be in the math or reading club versus participating in the enrichments?
We still have to dive into that information a little bit more. It was based on recommendations from the teachers, so since it's smaller, we don't have an extraordinary amount of staff members to support the interventions, and they will be smaller, so it will be a small percentage.
And what if a child needs both math and reading club?
Good question. So we look at where the greatest deficit is, and we go to that first. Mhm.
And kids that are taking the mini classes, what if they're not getting the things that they're asking for? Like, this first session, they picked, like a 7th grader picks golf, but golf was full.
Oh, that's a great question.
What
So,
happens?
so I've already talked to Mr. Cornacci, our PE teacher, is teaching golf, and he was excited. He's like, well, what I could do in the fall and the spring is golf and geocaching. So he would be reteaching it. In his case, he would be reteaching it in the spring, or depending on the weather, he could be possibly doubling it up and doing a intro to golf and another intro to golf 3 weeks later. And then geocaching for the good weather. And then he's talking about doing a nutrition class and using the home ec room as a possibility for nutrition as a mini unit in the future, in the winter time. So I guess what I'm telling you is some of the classes have the opportunity to be repeated depending on what students are desiring. Yeah.
I have one more follow-up question to the E period. So obviously, being able to move from intervention to
Enrichment. Yeah.
enrichment is a great motivator. How will you handle those kids who might need to go from enrichment to intervention?
The whole aspect, the mentality that I have, in which when we're talking to students about this, and is that it's what they need. I don't want it to be seen as a punishment at all.
Right.
Because this is we're seeing each student where they're at, and we're saying, hey, you need help, and they should, with Excel and progress monitoring, they should see, ooh, I got to work on this. I really don't have this down. I need some extra help. So it's part of that, the students taking ownership as well, and then having those discussions. Sometimes those discussions are going to be a little bit more difficult with a student or a parent sometimes. And sometimes they're going to be like, no, I get it. Yeah, I need this. Or they're going to say, hey, I'm realizing that I'm lacking here.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, we've had this issue when we've had the math booster and reading booster, so we've already gone through this, and our teachers that are teaching the intervention classes, they're very good at having those discussions with both the students and then also the parents as well. And if need be, John and I also talk to the student and make goals and have them keep track of their goals, and so they can see when they're about to move out and
Right.
progress.
Right, okay.
I have one more, unfortunately.
Oh, you're good.
The word nutrition really just kind of brought it to my mind. Looking through all, some of the descriptions of these classes, are we going to be offering a home economics mini unit? Cooking, balancing your checkbook,
Oh, I know teachers, although it's not Mrs. Riley, but I know that there are teachers that have already stated that they're very excited with the opportunity, like Mr. Cornacchia specifically. You know, I've already talked to Mr. Nillis, our head custodian at the school, and I said, hey, you know, make sure that we can turn back on the ovens, turn back on the gas, because, you know, we're going to be trying to access that home ec room.
Okay.
It's being used for other things as well, but, you know, that's the power of it. We can be flexible. We're going to be able to move things around so that we can make students as engaged as possible.
Okay.
So just a couple takeaways. I mean, some of this stuff, just answering, you know, Mary Kay's question, really sounds like, you know, you're not taking a kid and you're putting them here and you're here all year. So there is room for flexibility should, let's say, a math concept is being taught and all of a sudden, you know, a student's not getting it. So they can maybe move over for whatever time they need and come back. So that, I think, sounds fantastic from the, you know, so someone's not getting pigeonholed anywhere or not pigeonholed or something, but it's there as a resource. It's additional resources for kids who are there. So I love that. I do like this, the way you're also talking about, like, and this obviously looks like a lot of work went into this, but this sounds to me like that will address some of the issues of like last year there were some big science classes where there was like a lot of kids in one class and then, you know.
Lopsided classes.
Yes. So that's one of the things that you have addressed in this.
Sure.
As much as possible.
As much as
Right.
possible.
And
right.
there are some exceptions to that. Obviously, like I had mentioned, that there's some different programming needs that are causing some limitations, but
Okay.
for the most part.
But I thank you for listening to us before on that. And I just have to say one more time, you know, it's the middle of July, and thank you again so much for coming here. I know we were trying to promote that you guys were coming, so I really hope there's a lot of people watching, because this is another one of those initiatives that we've been working on for many years, part of the Small Giant, and this is just fantastic. And I appreciate the fact that you've looked at other schools and kind of brought this out there, like what works.
And it was our department heads or team leaders from last year. They did a lot of work with us, and different members of our building leadership team. I mean, so it wasn't just us.
Right.
It's a group effort.
And then can I ask, at some point, can you come back and talk to us and tell us how it's going?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously, you know, we will
And
hear.
if you have any questions, feel free to let us know, and if you,
Can I ask one more question, Marie? We had a couple parents that are present tonight, and I know there was one sort of burning question behind you, so I, just a little bit of an idea of all the research you did related to the E-period, sort of, kind of along the cost-benefit analysis, right? What is the benefit? I mean, what did you see in the schools that had converted to this type of flexible period? What is the benefit? I mean, what are the things that, you know, sort of the stated outcomes?
One of the top things was exposure and student engagement. You know, oftentimes I shouldn't say oftentimes, but we're taking a look at what the students need that have the deficits, and we're not looking at the enrichment piece as well. And so we wanted to tie, and it's, as time goes by, it's going to be more and more tied into the Common Core curriculum. Certain classes do a better job, certain enrichment classes do a better job of others, but that is a growing process. But we wanted to make sure that we're being respectful of each student's need, whether they had a need to raise, to increase and to lose that deficit, or whether they needed more enrichment and more exposure to many different opportunities.
And did you see that those schools that utilize an E-period were successful in doing that? I mean, do they have proven success that this kind of schedule has brought them that achievement? You know,
it's somewhat new, and some of the programs have evolved from what they began at, and really what we're starting at is pretty lofty. I mean, it's a lofty goal. We're going right into it. So, like I said, there may be some hiccups along the way, but overall, like when my nephews are in another school district, and we were talking to the students, we were talking to some of the families, and I've been talking to some of the families, I should say, and just very positive. The administration very positive about it as well.
and John had research in in his presentation about choices and how when we give students choices, it increases engagement, which increases internal motivation. And so that's what we're really looking for in the E period. That's what others are seeing. And so that's really our motivation.
In some of the classes, it's going to, once again, these mini units are going to be evolving, but some of the classes where, reading for the future that I've seen that are going to be planned are reading an extra enrichment novel in a literacy class. So we're talking more honors literacy classes, a 3 to 6 week mini unit on that. And so they get deeper into skills. Now, that might not win out over the Rube Goldberg project for some, but for others, that's right up their alley.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to give a whole bunch of options.
And I guess just, if you want to make changes, you have to start somewhere and monitor it, and, it's.
And we want to hear from families. I mean, obviously, we're going to be meeting with our team leaders, and we're going to be coming together with our faculty, our building leadership team in October, and saying, okay, where are we at? Not just with enrichment or the interventions, but where are we at with the schedule? Like, what's good? I want to make sure that this is successful, but at the same time, I have a little bit of pride, but not enough that I'm going to get in the way of what's best for kids.
So just going forward, and I don't know if this is a Kevin or John question, but we believe that there are a lot of families that watched your presentation this evening because there are a lot of junior high families and people with questions. For people that have questions that weren't answered, what's sort of the preferred path to getting those answers? I mean, phone calls, emails, meetings, I mean, that could potentially be a lot of people, I don't know, but kind of
Sure.
what's your...
I think email is the best way, and then what I can do, because that way, in case there's multiple people that are asking the same question, which can happen at times, then I can just post it on my blog.
Okay.
Now, we are going away from what we currently have as a district for a webpage. We're going to be going to something different in the future that's not ready for, it hasn't been fully researched yet. But as of right now, I'll be utilizing that to answer those kind of questions.
Okay.
So an email to me would be great.
That's a good point, because one of the things we've just recently talked about is starting to have the day after a board meeting, like a wrap-up email about, what the board talked about. And this might be one of those things that, we will certainly mention that you were here, and then we could even tell people, here's the link, go look at it, and.
Flood his email. Flood it.
That's why I'm asking, because I don't want
Yeah,
I want to know what you prefer.
It's
just in case.
it's the best way. I am going on vacation in a couple of weeks. Though.
No.
Yeah.
No, Kevin, just tell him no.
You cited something here in the, what we know.
Mm-hmm.
Students must have responsibility and choices related to their own learning. Maybe whatever that citation comes from, maybe you can post the title.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'd be interested in reading that.
Absolutely.
And that gets them off the conveyor belt, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's gonna, increase engagement and accountability, I'm all for it.
Again, thank you for coming here.
Absolutely.
In summer and explaining, and we're excited, and hopefully we'll just be getting just great things.
We're
But at
excited to
least,
tell you about it.
trying something new is,
A lot of things new.
yes.
A lot of things.
But that's how we get off the conveyor belt. And I didn't keep
It's awesome. I like
meaning to reference that, but, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Okay. Superintendent's report?
All right, and I think it's getting warmer in here.
Wow.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
So I think I'll
really.
be brief. No. Facility update, this is just related to South. Mike Maros provides a weekly update that I forward to you, and the board updates, so you've been getting those on a regular basis, but we are on time with the project. With like any project, there's always a couple of little wrinkles, but we've been able to work through those. And actually, at this point, they are drywalling the new spaces, and so we're moving along very quickly and should be able to complete it on time. So that's exciting. Just a reminder, Finance Committee next Tuesday, the 23rd, 6:30 PM at South in the conference room. And hopefully we'll get some very enthusiastic people there to join us. And then just a reminder, we have registration coming up. And for the first day night is July 24th, 1 o'clock PM to 7 o'clock PM. And then the second date is August 6th, 2 o'clock PM to 6 o'clock PM. And both dates take place at Westmont Junior High School. And so hopefully parents will be able to attend one of those afternoon evenings. And then as a reminder, any board members who would like to help on either or both of those dates, it is greatly appreciated. I know Nancy Pataglia really appreciates the extra hands on those dates.
It was, for those of us that did this last year, I know it was like an additional way of trying to remind people to sign up for the blogs, because some people didn't kind of get that. And online registration started, right?
Right, our online registration has started.
So parents can do that.
Can we remind people too that if they pay online, they don't have to stand, they really just have to come in and bring their proof of residency, and they're already paid, and then they can exit. So it really will expedite their experience.
Proof of residency, visit their PTO or booster tables, and then exit.
Yes, we encourage.
You're gonna get in trouble.
We encourage online payments.
Yes.
It'll save them lots of time.
But in order to do online payment, you have to have a Skyward account, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what about an incoming family? Can they get a Skyward password prior to registration?
Yes, they need to contact Chris Springer.
Chris Springer, okay.
Sure, I can also mention, there's been some question as to PLCs. Yes, we are doing PLCs. They'll be Wednesday afternoons again. And I did, Marie contacted me about one of our calendars wasn't reflecting that, and so I did find that calendar. So we're updating that to make sure that that reflects it as well. And then the other communication that will be going out is we have 2 programs that start in August, a transition to high school for incoming 9th graders, transition to junior high for incoming 6th graders. And originally there was a deadline to register, but we are extending that, and so there's still time for families to register for those, and we'll follow that up with communication to our 8th grade, incoming 9th grade, and incoming 6th grade families.
Will that communication include any information about what the program is? Because I've had numerous questions about, is this something every incoming 6th or 9th grader should attend, or is this targeted to a certain set of students? And I don't think that it was really clear in what's gone out up to this point, you know, if there's a targeted set of students that will benefit the most from this, or if we should be trying to encourage, you know, everybody kind of thing. So if you're going to put out a reminder, maybe, you know, 2 or 3 sentences, it just kind of says this is the point and this is the target, and that might help make parents make those last minute decisions.
Sure.
Are there any board reports?
The only board report I have is just a quick SACIT update, and they are doing kind of the same thing that we're doing with facilities as is they've contracted for a facilities assessment. One of their goals is to try and bring all of their administration into one location, a difficult and challenging task, but they're looking at individual districts, spaces that might be available, and they've formed a facilities committee to do much similar work, although it's includes all of the 18-member districts and a lot of unique situations, but that's one of the big initiatives that's going on at SACID right now. That, and they are negotiating with their teachers.
Okay, anything else? Board
I
reports?
guess just, you know, Taste of Westmont was this past weekend. I saw Mr. Carey as well as many other people there. Boosters had a big bingo tent. Lot of school district presence at Taste of Westmont this year, and I thought it was a wonderful year, and it was great to see so many people from our school community helping out and volunteering and doing activities at the Taste. It was just a great event.
Okay, are there any public comments? Then the chair will enter a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining and personnel issues.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Natbush?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
And there is no action following this closed session, so.
Okay.